April 21st, 2021. Today is Wednesday. I am Jarrin Jackson and I love America. Thank you for watching. I got nuked on Facebook last night, and so I will probably have not that many people watching live. So we'll see how things go. You can find me on my alternate YouTube channel and all these other kind of platforms. I appreciate you watching live. As always, I'll put it on Rumble. After whenever it uploads. My bias, as normal, is I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe that the Bible is the inerrant, inspired, holy, perfect Word of God. I am a Christian, which means that I believe in the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is this thing right here. That thing right there. That's what that means. That is the only way to salvation. It's the only way to heaven is to believe in Jesus Christ. He paid for your sins. I am a constitutional defending, Rush baby, patriotic, Lynn Wood, multiple time endorsed Trump supporter. Today, we're going to be speaking about economic warfare. Economic warfare. That's what's going on. I want to point out one thing. This is the radio. One of my very first memories is listening to Rush Limbaugh with my grandfather. This guy, listening to Rush Limbaugh with this guy right there, World War II veteran. I named my firstborn son after him. This is the radio. This is the radio. This is the radio my grandfather would listen to. Hold on. That is the radio that my grandfather would listen to all the way back in 1989. Jarrin was 4 years old, and that's what I was listening to Rush Limbaugh on, so I thought that was pretty cool. My brother gave me that. It's a really good present. This evening we're going to be talking about some laughs. We're going to have a slight update. Phase 1, I'm going to be talking about systemic idolatry. Systemic idolatry. And then phase 2, the bulk of the presentation this evening, is going to be economic warfare. I'm going to start putting meat on the bone as far as the live local is concerned, because there's a lot of testiness going on. There's a lot of folks that are getting snippety, and so we're gonna address some things pretty upfront and directly with that. So with that, let's get rolling. Let's do some laughs. Roll the rock. All right, for the people who think that everyone in the military takes the daisy, I wanted to play this video. This is a hodgepodge of a bunch of Marines from the other day. I've been sitting on it for a few days, but I thought this was funny. Go ahead and watch this.
Did you get the vaccine?
No.
Hey, did you get the vaccine?
Yes.
Did you get the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine?
No.
Did you get the vaccine?
No.
Did y'all get the vaccine? Did y'all get the vaccine? No. Hey, did you get the vaccine?
No.
Did you get the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine?
No.
Did you get the vaccine?
I like that last one. She's like, no, what if I died? So that just shows, no, not everyone is getting the daisy. This second one I saw today, just a few minutes ago. This is the Beverly Hill Bidens. Listen to this.
Come and listen to my story about a Democrat son, silver spoon boy doing drugs by the ton. And then one day he was shooting between his toes, got out of plane with his dad, and off to Kiev he goes. Prisma, that is, black gold, Texas like tea. Well, the first thing you know, Biden's son's a millionaire. The Kim folks said, you got rich over there. Said maybe China is the place you ought to sing, so he jumped on Dad's coattails and he flew to Beijing. China, you see, corruption and greed. Well, now it's time to say goodbye to Hunter and his kin, and I would like to thank you folks for kindly dropping in. You're all invited back next week to this locality to have a heaping helping of his necktie party. Tribunal, that is. Set a smell, take your shoes off. We're having Paul Pelosi Jr. and Chris Hines over, too. Y'all get some popcorn and come back now, you hear?
Now that is a creative use of old commentary from an old TV show to apply to today. So that's good. I might have to start doing the same thing if I got a few extra time. The last part that makes me laugh, and I've sit on this for about a couple days, it makes me laugh in a warrior kind of way. I'll play it. There's really no other way to introduce it, but I liked this video. Yeah, I liked it because last night Facebook nuked me. Like, I mean, I was offline for probably 20 minutes. My father was watching. He was a little bit behind, and all of a sudden, boom, just got nuked. And Facebook is where most people watch me. So, you know, there you go. The majority of my live stream audience is down, and so people need to start migrating off of the Godless Commie platforms. So I connected with that video because that seems, I mean, that's how it feels. It's how it feels. You talk about stuff, you say stuff you believe. I'm not racist, I'm not bigoted or sexist or homophobic or any of those things, but the Godless Commies don't like what I say, and so they're just like a bunch of hyenas against me, and so it feels good to know that there's some lions out there ready to roar and push back. Okay, let's roll the rock. Let's get to the update. This was a news report of Maricopa County. They are going to do a hand ballot forensic audit of over 2.1 million ballots. This is what it looks like inside the place where it's going to happen.
Kind of what people are looking at. This is set up for trying to process 2.1 million ballots in the space of 40 days, and every single one of them by hand. So
This is a hand forensic audit, correct?
that is correct. Hand inspection and retabulation of votes.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break.
Yeah, I have a lot of people. That are posting on my Facebook. Hey, are you on? Are you on? I can see your messages, but I got nuked. So please follow me on other platforms, because if they nuke me, there you go. But that you saw it. Arizona recount, by hand forensic audit of all the ballots. It's going to take a long time, but it's going to be by hand. There's plenty of security, plenty of privacy for the people who are doing it. And from my sources on the ground, Wendy Rogers, State Senator Wendy Rogers, and a couple other people at the grassroots level there in Arizona are saying that these godless commies really don't want them. The establishment in Arizona, even the GOP establishment, is trying to shut it down in Maricopa County, Arizona, which is just incredible. It's just incredible that they would do that. Just incredible that they would try to stop the recount. I mean, what's the problem, right? Like, if Joe Biden was legally duly elected by the majority of the American people, which he got against a little forensic audit, shouldn't we be able to do that against all of them? This next thing kind of it doesn't worry me. I play this. This is going to be Iranian drone footage. I'll just play it up. There's no sound. But this is Iranian drone footage taken of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower over in the Persian Gulf. Iran has drones that are able to take real-time footage and relay footage of our aircraft carriers. Now, that's super secret information. It's old, so it's not timely, it's not new, but that footage, that drone footage, comes from the USS Eisenhower from Iran, reportedly from Iran. Now, could it be wrong? Yes, it could be from somewhere else. The important thing, I guess the reason why I bring that up, is that in what world would Iran feel comfortable flying a drone over an American aircraft carrier and then recording that footage and blasting it? There's a couple different perspectives. One, Iran does have the drone. They do collect intelligence. They do observe and surveil the U.S. Navy, at which point that's a risk, and it demonstrates how they are not threatened or deterred from our strength anymore. That's one way to look at it. Two, this could be the Navy or the Air Force or somebody else on the DoD, the U.S. military, the U.S. Department of Defense side, for them taking drone footage of our own ships and then sending it out to people telling us that it's drone footage from Iran. And if that's the case, you would then ask, why would they be doing that? Why would the U.S. military be taking footage of our own ships and then broadcasting that back here at home? Are they trying to generate a war? That's interesting. So that's, that's the way that it is. In either case, there might be another explanation. I don't know which one it is, but if there is another explanation, it's interesting that type of stuff is happening and it's getting back here. It just shows you how digitally connected we are to everything. But the stressor for me is that this is a perspective. This is uncharted waters where the United States military's secrets are either disclosed via the internet by whoever, or our deterrent, our strength is no longer significant. It doesn't push people back anymore. In either case, whatever the scenario is, whatever narrative or explanation you want to ascribe to, either way, it doesn't look good for the foreseeable future. The last part, if you are a normal millennial driving around, you try to recognize where things are. You just take a one snapshot look. You don't even have to be millennial to do this. You just take a snapshot of the last year. Think about the last year that's happened to you. It's probably going to sound something like this.
Asleep right now, so let me try to come wake y'all up a little bit. Good morning. Wear your mask. Get the vaccine. You're saving lives. Let's restore the world. In less than a year, you were whipped into submission. You were told when you could leave your house, how much food you could buy. You were given rations on water and essential care. You were told not to go to church, not to see your family. They took the gyms away from you, then told you that you couldn't go to the parks, the trails, or the playgrounds. Yet, the largest corporations like Walmart and Amazon remained open. You got permission to grocery shop with 1,200 other people, but not attend a funeral of 50. They dangled your freedom over your heads after they biogenetically killed 5% of the country. They made you wait for $600, $1,200, $1,400 of your own money to hush you up, just as you almost crossed the poverty line and made you feel appreciated. They whipped you into mind control and made you need them. Now you need a vaccine. Soon you won't be able to get or keep your job without it or travel. This was all prophesied, but you don't read your Bible, so you can't recognize what the beast system looks like. Wake up.
Amen. Amen. The beast system. So that's not good. It's not good that there's a lot of control going on. It's not good that there's a lot of exploitation. But just think about all the things that was said in that video. True things. In less than a year, we've given up our rights, allowed the government to take over us. I want to say one thing really quick. If you do not defend your rights, you do not love other people. If you are not selfish for your God-given liberty, then you don't really love other people. And we'll get into that in phase 1 when we talk about systemic idolatry. But if you don't care about the things that God gives you, then you don't care about the things that God gives other people. And if you don't care about the things that God gives other people, how could you ever consider yourself loving? Just interesting. All right, the last thing I'll do before we move on to phase 1. Hey, folks, this is my job. If it's entertaining, no godless commies here. You want to support Combat Veteran. I'm at 25.4%. I did my moonwalk yesterday. If we get to 50%, I will do my cartwheel. I want to say thank you very much. I don't want to do corporate sponsorship. I have had people offer me money to read them commercials, but I want this between me and you. I would love to have the biggest audience in the world. I would really like this live stream to be able to provide for my family, and only this live stream to be able to provide for my family. And I want to make sure that this is between us. I don't want any corporate sponsorships. No matter even if, I talked to Mike Lindell, which I'm going to be on the phone with him on Friday. Like, I don't want corporate sponsorship because I want this listener supported. If that means that I tell people no and I cut it out, okay, yeah, roger that. I will. But I want that to keep me honest. Anyway, 25.4%. I appreciate the people who have helped me out. Thank you very much. Let's go to phase 1. Yesterday, so I'm going to be talking right now about systemic idolatry. See, these godless commies, they like to use words. The devil loves to twist words. He loves to create words. I've said this before. This is a spiritual war for the mind. This is your key terrain. The godless commies enter through your eyes and through your ears. When they make up words, what they're doing is they're invading your ears to attack the mind. Words create concepts. And if you continue to hear those words, those concepts will become better formed and more prevalent. So when people talk about systemic racism, what they've done is they've taken the word systemic, which didn't used to have any political value, and they attached it to racism, which has had political value for several decades. Now, what these godless commies have realized is that in America, with our Christian heritage and our Christian culture, that's important, by the way, they realized that they could guilt and shame these people into submission. These people being, flat-footed, evangelical, woke Christians. People just don't want to fight for their rights. They don't want to offend anybody. People are told that Jesus was a nice guy, and because they believe that Jesus was a nice guy, they don't want to be mean. They can't be mean Christians. They have to be nice Christians. Oh, you want to take my stuff and burn down Minneapolis? Okay, go ahead, because one black person was killed. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You can do it. Systemic racism. So they took racism, which is a category error. It's Darwinian presupposition, right? This is monkey think. Racism is monkey think. You do not come from monkeys. I don't know about you, but I don't get on the phone and be like, it doesn't happen, folks. So then they put systemic, which means that it's part of the system. You can't undo it. It's there. See, these godless commies will have, there are people with doctorates, right? That's why I have a doctorate in stuffology from Harvard. I don't care about these sociologists that have had these perspectives and their degrees where they get to say fancy things or they get to say very destructive things about my culture, about our culture. Because when they do these things, they create words that infiltrate through our ears and they dominate our mind. People my age and younger. I'm about to play AOC, a jihadi and a fourth wave feminist. First wave is men and women are equal. First wave is men and women are equal. Second wave is we don't need men. Third wave is we are men. And fourth wave is attack men. So fourth wave feminist, that's AOC. She is a fourth wave feminist jihadi, but I'll get to her in a second. The point I'm trying to bring up is whenever we use words that aren't based in the Bible, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, God's words don't help form the concepts that are in our head. So when we hear words that don't come from God, the concepts in our head generally aren't from God. They're from whoever made up the word. And whoever made up the word systemic racism took racism with all its emotion, with all of its hate, with all of its baggage, with all of its history, and attached to it systemic. This could be Kendi, this could be Gramsci, this could be whomever on the critical race theory side. And a quick note, when people talk about, here's what critical race theory thinks, I don't care what critical race theory thinks. I don't like using the word because the word doesn't exist. It was made up by someone who hates God, hates you, and wants to destroy my country. Why am I going to use their ammunition? Why am I going to use their words? Why am I going to give them a platform to go into the ears of people I care about so that the concepts of the people who I care about are going to be ruled and governed by, critical race theory? This is why whenever there's people on my side who say, critical race theory says racism is normative. Well, I don't really want to explain what that means. And then think about this. If you're sitting down and you hear racism is normative, you're going to be like, what does that mean? Because it's not an intuitive idea, right? So you're going to have to explain. Racism being normative means that it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere, it's universal. You can't get away from it. And so if critical race theory, it's normative, you're basking in a culture where there's latent racism. That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of systemic racism. And so when someone touts off, it's systemically racist, they've made up a word that is purposefully and perfectly propagandistic. And one of the listeners on Telegram said today that the middle word of propaganda is pagan. Propaganda. Pagan. Pro-pagan. Duh. Pro-pagan. Duh. That's what it is. It's pro-pagan. Duh. The pro-pagan. Duh. Has words that get you to think of other things. So what I want to introduce is this concept of systemic idolatry. Idolatry, real fast, before we get into most things, the Bible talks about idols in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3 and 4. This is God talking. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Now, why would God say this? One, because he can. Two, because if you understand the ancient Near East, if you go back way back in the day, people would create idols. They would make idols. They would carve idols. They would construct things, and then they would believe that the thing that they had just made is actually representative of some deity or some god. And they would have these idols positioned or like stood up on stands in case they get knocked over or whatnot. And they would think that if it was a great representation of the god, that it would be imbued by the god and the deity would be there. And so that they would fashion it out of gold and they would treat it with respect and all these other things. But understand the whole time they make the idol and then they worship it. So idolatry at its core is, one, not worshiping God. Two, you're worshiping something that you make. That's the absurdity of it. So anytime someone is elevating something that they've made, that is systemic idolatry. Anytime someone does not glorify God, that is systemic idolatry. And so Christians, patriots, America lovers, I would recommend that you, whenever someone talks to you about systemic racism, just counter-accuse or counter-correct them and say, oh, that's systemically idolatrous. What do you mean? Well, you've made that God up. You've made the God of systematic racism up, and now you are worshiping it. And now you want me to bend the knee to worship your idol. And I'm not going to do that because I love Jesus, and Jesus loves you. You don't have to go to hell for believing in systemic racism. Now, I can tell you there's probably going to be some people in the audience that are like, well, Jarrin, you don't believe in systemic racism? No! No, I don't. Not at all. Zero, nil, not a zip. Zip. I don't believe in it. It's a category error. I deny the premise. I deny the premise that racism is a credible thing for me to accept as a truth. It is a Darwinian presupposition shoved down in through my ears to dominate my brain. For what purpose? For no other purpose than for me to look at another image bearer of God as, that dude doesn't look like me. And because he doesn't look like me, he's different than me. I'm not going to grant them the beachhead. I'm not going to let them land on the beach and set up shop so they can further invade inland. Ain't going to happen. Not at all. So if someone says, do you deny systemic racism? Yes. Why? Because it's hatred. It's the sin of hatred. It's the sin of partiality. It is not racism. Okay, so systemic idolatry is this notion that people are going to craft ideas and build understandings of the world, not based in scripture, but based in their own political opportunism. Their own political opportunism, their own political agenda is the reason why they say what they say. They think what they think. That's why they do what they do. This is why godless commies are so effective, and it's why they've caught our culture flat-footed. It's why they have Christians on the defense. It's why they have us on the retreat. And so when we use their words, we're leveraging their concepts in our head. Not only have their concepts come in through the ears and dominated our brain, but we're giving them the framework of the debate. It's like we're going to their world where it's crazy town and you can go up is down and left is right and women are men and men are, not needed and hated. It's like you can do whatever you want in crazy town. You can make all the rules. So I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go to crazy town. I'm not going to go to Idle Town. And so these people make things up and they say things with no proof, not to have any proof, but they say things as though they're true. They make truth claims. Now I'm about to play a clip from AOC. We'll talk about it after. Actually, let's just go ahead and do it. This is AOC yesterday after she hears the verdict of the Derek Chauvin case.
So no, this verdict is not justice. Frankly, I don't even think we call it full accountability because there are multiple officers that were there. It wasn't just Derek Chauvin. And I also don't want this moment to be framed as this system working. because it's not working. And that's what creates a lot of complexity in this moment.
She says a lot for not having said anything. Excuse me. She doesn't say anything even though she talks. That's what I meant to say. There's a couple different things that she says here. First of all, again, this is systematic idolatry at work. This is systematic idolatry at work. First thing that she says in this clip, and there's probably a longer clip there, but she says she wants full accountability. By what standard, AOC? By what standard? Now, I might be able to come alongside you and say that our justice system is not perfect. Granted, it's of men. What's it? Federalist 51 says that men are not angels and so therefore must be governed. But because government is of man, government must be limited. That's a biblical concept, by the way. 1 Samuel chapter 8 is God making the best argument for limited government. Go read it whenever you have the other time. But whenever AOC talks about full accountability, is she the judge? What standard are you using there, Miss Idolater? What standard are you elevating yourself to the position of judge? Did you just make yourself God? Did you just make yourself into a little idol, Miss AOC? What standard are you using? Remember whenever I said yesterday about justice? You're just there. What's the standard that you're using? She doesn't elucidate. She doesn't explain that. Because her standard of justice is whatever is anti-white, whatever is anti-Christian, whatever is anti-American. That is her standard. But here's the other thing. She can't be satisfied because if she loses the grievance, then she has no fuel. A worldview based on hate, because it's not based on the Bible. God is love, so if you believe the Bible, your worldview is grounded in Scripture, it's grounded in truth, it's grounded in love. And so by definition, it follows if you don't have a worldview grounded in the Bible, you have a worldview grounded in not the Bible. AOC has a worldview grounded in hate. She has a worldview grounded in systemic idolatry, where she has deemed, as though she's a god, that racism is systemic and racism is the number one thing. And so that's what she talks about. A couple other points she says is that, there were multiple officers present. Hey, AOC, why are you taking away from Jesus? Why are you stealing from Jesus when you want to talk about justice? See, you're talking about bystanders. There's other officers that were there whenever Derek Chauvin was killing George Floyd, right? Why didn't those other officers do things? Isn't this the story of the Good Samaritan? Isn't this where Jesus was talking about, hey, here's all these big fancy religious types and they didn't do nothing. You have a responsibility to help people if they're in trouble. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a uniform or a badge or not a uniform or a badge. If someone's doing something wrong, if someone's hurting, even though the medical coroner testified under oath that he died of overdose to fentanyl, but hey, we're not going to say that. And he said that his oxygen levels were perfectly fine at 98%. But hey, let's not get facts in the middle of a good idolatrous rant, right? So if she's saying that there's multiple officers there, what's she want? AOC's a Jacobin. Go look the Jacobins up. The Jacobins are connected to the Jesuits, which are actually really influential in the Rothschilds, by the way. But Jacobins were the people during the what's it called? The tyranny, the terror. The Jacobins were involved in the terror in the French Revolution. Look up 1792. Maximilien Robespierre. French, I drink of the wine and smell of the cheese. Enchanté, bon chéri. These are the Frenchmen who would use the guillotine to chop the head off. That's what they did. They chopped heads off. She's a Jacobin. If she had her way, if there were more AOCs, she would be chopping people's heads off. Amen. That's her ideological bent. That is her ideological and philosophical ancestry. It shouldn't be, even though she grew up in the suburbs and was known as Sandy Cortez whenever she went to a white school and for college. But the point is that she's wanting other people implicated in on it. She wants the other officers implicated. Well, her standard here is if you're an officer and bad stuff happens, according to her, bad is according to AOC. Well, if you're there, off with your head. Just line them up and chop them up, right? Maybe now she can use her degree in underwater basket weaving. How entertaining would that be? You got a bunch of godless commies who have graduated with mountains of college debt, but because they took underwater basket weaving, they can now weave their baskets underwater for the heads of the people they're going to be chopping off because they're all Jacobins. Wow. The other thing is, understand she's making a overt play. That she's not even trying to make it subtle anymore. Understands that she's like, I don't want this to be framed as the system working. She's literally taking a metacognitive approach. Metacognition is separating. It's thinking about the way that you think. Meta, outside, world, cognition, thinking. Outside thinking is thinking about the way that you think. Metacognition. So a metacognitive approach is for her to step back and say, whoa, I don't want to accept this frame. The justice system is not working. Why? Because if you step into her frame, the justice system is completely bereft of any morality. It's always going to be wrong. And so if the justice system, in her perspective, because she's God, remember, because she has systemic idolatry, the justice system will always be wrong. And because it's always wrong in her worldview, she can't accept the premise. She cannot allow anybody else to believe that justice is served. She has to be perpetually grieved, perpetually violated in some kind of way. That's the issue. And the last part there, she says that this is really complex. And that, my friends, is an idolatrous dog whistle. That is the one of the greatest harbingers of systemic idolatry, is that anytime these godless commies say that they have to have a conversation, and it's more complicated than that, or let's elevate these voices, when they say that crap, what they're doing is they're creating wedge room. They're trying to use what's called the Hegelian dialect. It's nothing more than just trying to smuggle in godlessness. That's what they're doing. You've got right and wrong, and what they've tried to do is mesh the two together. And in order to get you to realize that right maybe could be wrong, what they do is they try to insert something right in the middle. And what that is, and there's a philosophical term, Hegelian dialect, where you take the opposite of the thing that you hate. Let's say that you hate the justice system. So what do? You introduce the concept that this justice system is systemically racist and it's always wrong. Well, if you introduce that concept, well, then somewhere right here in the middle is the sweet spot. It's the porridge. It's the Goldilocks method. And so the Goldilocks method will take the thing that you hate, introduce the exact opposite, and because these things go against each other, they actually smash into something and create something new. That something new is neither what was or what you want it to be. But because you were the one that threw something to it, that jammed it together, you've influenced it on the trajectory that you want. Which is why I recommend that you say that this is systemic idolatry. Systemic idolatry is the people who are always trying to make themselves God. She is trying to take God's place. She would love to be in God's throne. Absolutely. Why? So that she could have full accountability. So that she could go after the other officers. So that she could make sure that other people saw the world the way that she wants to see the world. And then lastly, so that there wouldn't be so much complexity to the issue. These godless commies, man. And just to bring this up, LeBron deleted this tweet. This is what LeBron did. This is the dude that shot the girl in Columbus. You're next. Hashtag accountability with a sand thing going on. This is the video he's talking about right here. Watch. I probably should have warned you about graphic. My bad. I assume that people have watched that. That was yesterday evening, right around the time of the Derek Chauvin verdict was read. That was a white cop against a 16-year-old black girl trying to stab people with a knife. Even though the cops were there in broad daylight, that girl was still trying to stab people with a knife. You're next. Accountability. Systemic idolatry. Systemic idolatry will not consider the facts. Systemic idolatry will elevate the desired narrative ahead of and more important than truth. Systemic idolatry is anti-truth. They're truth haters. That's what they are. They're truth haters because they have to have hate. They can't be told the truth because if they understood the truth, they would have to accept it. They would have to deconstruct their own garbage worldview and might have to have clear thinking. And these godless commies don't want clear thinking. They're allergic to clear thinking. Let's say that. I do want to say one last thing. I thought this was funny. I could have put this in the laughs category, but this just follows. If all these people are making skin color based or skin based arguments, right? The color of your skin is the basis of their perspective. These people who are talking like this, they don't want to consider all notions or all other areas where people with same skin colors have bad things happen to them. See, the very specific thing that has to be maximized by these idolaters is that it has to be a white cop or non-black, non-brown person wearing a badge to shoot a black person. That's what it has to be. But if that's the case, it's not the fact that a black person was hurt or shot or brown person was hurt or shot or killed or whatever. It's the fact that it's the colors. The color combination is the right thing. It's like it's like shooting off a firework. You have to have the right combination in order to get the big explosion that you're looking for. You don't want to just like set a fire on wood and be like, okay, that sucks. Right? But you want the colored fire that's what you want. You want the fireworks. What was it yesterday? The Arcalect, the AI that shares created visually stimulating content. This is Arcalect. But I found this yesterday. I thought it was funny. Watch this.
Yo, I need some help fact-checking something really quick. It looks from the 15th century to the 19th century, only 12.4 million slaves were brought over to America from what I can find. 12.4, right? In the past 48 years, black women have aborted 19.4 million black babies. Black women have killed more black babies than black people brought over on slavery. If these numbers are right, the most dangerous thing to black people in general is a black woman. I'm gonna let y'all let that sink in.
Phase 2. I ain't touching that. Phase 2. I've talked about live local. Live local is the rejection of globalism. It's the patriotic response to the world that we see. Bunch of big monopolies, godless commies, these mega corporations who now seem to have more influence than our government, which is exactly what happened. The government was bought off by corporations, corporatists. Well, Jared, free market capitalism. We'll get there. We'll get there, homie. We'll get there. Large corporations bought off politicians. They lobbied them. They got them to write special protections and provisions through the government. Can you say Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, right? So big tech lobbied Congress to get protections from the federal government to shield corporations. Those large corporations get really big, they become monopolistic, and all of a sudden they are acting and using influence and power that they don't have, that they should not have, that cannot be held into account. Now, Jarrin, aren't you talking about power now? Didn't you say the other day where you don't want to have a power epistemology because if you're thinking in terms of power, then that's bad because that argument can be used by the other people? I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Power is the output. It's the product. It's the byproduct of the relationship. The violation of monopolies is that it's antitrust. It's anti-competitive. If you and I cannot compete in a marketplace, if we cannot conduct commerce, then you can't provide a living for yourself. The reason why you have the right to participate in commerce, the reason why you have the right to trade, the right to travel, is one, you're an image bearer of God. God told Adam to tend and keep the garden. Tend it, keep it, go do stuff, be fruitful, multiply. So production, work, construction, building, creation, innovation, thriving, cultivating, that is in our makeup. By the way, whenever someone says made in the image of God, Go way back to ancient Near East. Go way back to the ancient Near East, because that's the audience to whom Genesis was written to, right? Genesis was not written to a 21st century American or wherever you're from. Genesis was written to someone who is in the ancient Near East. People in the ancient Near East did not believe that something existed, hear me, until it had a purpose. So when God makes the birds, the fish, the beasts, and the creeping, crawling things on the ground, those all have purpose because they go and do stuff. And whenever Adam was able to name the things in Genesis chapter 2, naming something identified its purpose. Ooh. So when Adam named all the stuff, God's given Adam the authority, go do the stuff, go name the things. And so Adam had to go up to like a donkey and say, all right, the donkey's purpose is donkey. And then donkey was related to the function that it fulfilled. Adam was named man because he comes from the dirt. The dirt is humble. God named Adam man because his purpose is to be and to glorify God. So if dirt, right? If dirt-based beings can glorify God, how much glory does God get? All of it. That's right. By the way, this is not for show, but like I still have dirt on my hands from working outside. Now that's not me like going out and like getting dirt on my hand and be like, oh man, look how cool I am. I wish I would have done that, but not really. But the point I'm trying to make is things did not have a purpose. Excuse me, things did not exist in the ancient Near East. Things did not exist until they had a purpose, or their purpose was identified. As an image bearer of God, your purpose is fulfilled because of the essence of who God is. The first thing God was identified as is the creator. So our purpose, the essence of our purpose, is to create and glorify him and be creative and like do stuff. Go solve that problem. Go make that poem. Go sing that song. Go build that company. Go raise the family. Go build the house. Go fish that sea. Go cultivate the land. Go do stuff. Go do stuff. And in the doing of all the stuff, you are creative. That is what it means to be an image bearer of God. You are bearing his image because you're fulfilling the purpose he gave you. The purpose he gave you is to go be creative and go do stuff. Make sense? And so if you do not have the right to participate in commerce, I can't go do stuff because that godless commie corporation is so big, I get nuked like that for saying something that they disagree with. Well, Jarrin, you're on their platform. Right, but their platform only grew and it was only protected, and they can't be sued because the government protects them from it. The government shields them from defending my right to participate in commerce and gives them the ability to become the marketplace. They are the ecosystem. So in this case, the godless commies, the corporations, have paid off the government, allowed the lobbyists to craft and manipulate the politicians, who then have the lobbyists write the notes or write the bills, which then the politicians are like, what does this say? I don't really know. And people are like, here, just pass this. Okay, yeah, we'll go past this. And then there's some person with a Tyler and a Tamika who wears a blue suit with brown shoes who's telling everybody else. They're called the whips, by the way. If you're a whip in Congress, your job is to go out and make other people vote the way that you're told to go make them vote. It's really bizarre. You think that you have a representative democracy? You don't. You got a couple people who are at the very top of their party system, and the people at the top of the party system whip, literally, I mean, not literally, but they metaphorically, these people in a line. And so the effect of that is that people do what they're told. Well, if people do what they're told with respect to voting for bills that empower corporations at the expense of the little people, guess who gets screwed over decades? That's the result of NAFTA. That's why trade is the way that it is, and we'll get into that here in a second. But one thing I wanted to nail home real hard is that whenever your right to participate in commerce is obstructed or taken away, and it's anti-competitive, which means you can't compete because the monopoly is so big, that's the role of government to bust that up. That's why it's called trust busting. You've violated, that company is so big, it violated the trust between me and you. I can't participate in commerce. I can't do trade. I can't grow the food and hunt the stuff and do the stuff that I'm supposed to be able to as an image bearer of God, because I'm creative and I'm supposed to be doing stuff, because that godless commie company has got all the resources, or has locked it all up, or has the government protections that can just nuke me for saying something that they don't like, which is what happened yesterday. You see, this all fits. This is the essence of live local. Live local is the recognition that as an image bearer of God, your purpose is to be creative, to produce, to be part of a bigger puzzle piece, and not to be squashed by these godless commies. Make sense? So with that, I want to say this is the biblical heart, in my opinion, of the live local. It's 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 11 and 12. It says that you also aspire to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your own hands as we have commanded you, that you may walk properly toward those who are outside, and that you may lack nothing. Look at that. Lead a quiet life, mind your own business, work with your own hands as we've commanded you. This is Paul writing the church at Thessalonica, that you may walk properly toward those who are outside. That means you're telling people about the gospel, and that you may lack nothing. That means that whenever you live local, you work with your hands, you preach the gospel, you do those things, you lead a quiet life, you're not going to lack anything. That's the system. That's the idea. That's God's order that conservatives conserve. That's the thing I want. Now, that's protected and enumerated in the Constitution. That's why we have trust busting. But I wanted to give you all that because now I want to talk about economic war. And the person that was probably the most popular, the most biggest proponent for economic war, certainly in the last 10 years, is none other than Andrew Breitbart.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, F*** you. War.
That is right. It's war, economic war, and the basis of that economic war is dirty hands. That's my hand. I took it a couple days ago when I got, actually last week I think, I got a really bad sunburn. I am peeling like a snake. Peeling like a snake. And the idea is to work with your hands. I told my boys today, the closer you are to work with God's creation, the more humbling it is, the more insightful I've become, because I've recognized, man, I don't want to be up here at this, hustle bustle. I got to do this. Let me hop on a call. I never want to hop on a call. How do you hop on a call? Do I have the phone in my face and I'm just hopping? I just want to touch base. Really? Am I playing baseball? Am I touching the base? And then I'm going to lead off. I'm just going to touch base. I'm just going to touch base. I just want to connect with you. Really? Did you want to do like what's that movie called where they take the things in the back of their head and they stick it in the animal? No, it's Avatar. It's that movie, James Cameron's movie, Avatar. I just want to connect with you. Really? Do you have the things that do the, no. Hey, I need to speak with you about the thing. There you go. Anyway, dirty hands. That's what it's about. There are people who are in this economic war, and I'm going to be very blunt. Let me cut. I got a couple minutes here. Let me cut. I say this with love. The most important thing you can do is view your dollars like bullets. Your dollars are ammunition. It is ammunition. And it's how you, specifically you, can fight these godless commies. Where does your ammunition go? Do you give the godless commies ammunition, or do you give patriots ammunition? I have been talking about last year, whenever COVID destroyed my restaurants, I had the idea where I wanted to start an ammunition manufacturing business. And I got all the licensing, I got all the stuff that you could want to do. It took a long time. By the time it happened, by the time I got credentialed and I was allowed to by the government, right? It's another thing. But by the time I was allowed to actually make bullets and sell guns and do those things, all my sources, not like a Q source, but like a logistics source, all the sources for component materials and all these sorts of things had dried up. The ammunition and firearms industry in 2019 was a $19 billion a year industry. Last year, it was close to $30 billion. And right now, I would not be surprised if it was more than that. Meaning, the demand for firearms and guns is so high, the supply literally cannot keep up with it. There is a natural cost curve that just skyrockets. I want to be very clear. I have wanted to start that company for a while because I was like, people are going to want guns and ammo because that's what I wanted, right? Although I only have replicas. No real guns, no real ammo. I only have replicas. I got fake butter knives here at the Homestead. But the idea is that whenever I wanted to start this company, I realized to manufacture, hear me, to manufacture one bullet of 9mm. I'm sorry if you're not gun people, you're not bullet people, or rounds. To manufacture one round of .223, which is what your AR-15, your military-style assault rifles, cost 19 cents. 19 cents is what it would cost to manufacture at the beginning of the COVID crisis. Do you want to know how much it costs right now? Upwards like 75 cents a round. That's the cost increase. So today I had this idea where it's like, hey, I want to push this thing out here. Here's my point in all of this. And I'm going to highlight another company. A couple things. Your money is ammunition. Give it to patriots. Do not spend your money at godless commies. I have grace and I'm willing to forgive. And of course, I am guilty at some levels of spending money where I should not go. Wean yourself off of that. Look for alternatives. If alternatives don't exist, think about how you could produce one. That's what I'm doing with the ammo. I recognize patriots need bullets, right? Especially now more than ever with Minneapolis and all these other places on fire. So people need ammo. So I'm sitting here going, how do I solve that? So I want to solve that. The problem is, I'm not a godless commie corporatist. I'm not a monopoly. So I cannot purchase $10 million worth of components. I can only purchase all the money I can throw at this thing, which is not anywhere near that much money. And so if I produce something, it's going to be more expensive. But let's not make this about me. I want to highlight Sandhills Beef Company in Nebraska. This company, and there you got the website up there at the top, sandhillsbeefco.com. This is a listener. A listener owns this. Someone in this audience owns this. He owns it outright, debt-free. He's a cash-on-cash business. Business is doing really well. He cannot find people to work for him. If you want to go out to Mullen, Nebraska and earn $50, $60, $70,000 a year cutting beef, if you're in a godless commie blue state and you want to make a good living in a red state, that's a company right there looking to hire right now. $50,000, $60,000 to go cut up cows. They'll show you how. You will have work. It's dependable. It's reliable. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because in order for us to win, we have to bring back our industries. We have to bring back our production from China and overseas. NAFTA, hollowed out America. We got to bring it back here. It will be more expensive. Hear me. It will be more expensive because the cost of being an American is higher than the slave, godless commie labor that they have in China. A China cow is not going to cost as much as an America cow. An American-made bullet by an American combat veteran-owned company is going to cost more than a godless commie company like Remington. Look up who owns Remington. Look up what they also do in their spare time. I wonder what their political leanings are. And I wonder if these large bullet manufacturers, these large firearms manufacturers are kind of dragging their heels because of COVID. I wonder if there's a way to snuff out the Second Amendment without any regulations. Interesting. Just a thought. But the Sandhills Beef Company is, he's a combat veteran. He's a patriot trying to hire people. Called me right before the show and he was like, I just want to hire people. I can't hire people. So there you go. I've been very deliberate. Your money, your currency is ammunition. Find patriots. Support patriots. It will hurt. It will hurt. You will pay a higher price because that's the price of overcoming and defeating godless commies. Instead of storming the beaches of Normandy, you might pay more for an American-made product by someone who's not a godless commie, satanic pedophile, trafficking in kids. Okay? If you want to stop the adrenochrome, if you want to stop all the godless commie crap, all the Satanism and Luciferianism going on in the world, you might have to pay a little bit of a markup. And it's not because people are trying to price gouge you. It's because the system is dominated by globally controlled monopolies. And how easy is it for them to, their fingers, and everything is destroyed? Live Local, my workshop on May 8 in Claremore, Oklahoma, I've provided the information on Telegram, is going to be specifics. I'm going to give specifics. I'm going to tell you right now. Food, water, shelter. You provide those things. You focus on those things. Get away from your Netflix. Downgrade your internet service. Like, think about how easy things would be if some godless commie fingering a button, click the button, and you're gone. That's what happened to me yesterday. The godless commies at Facebook nuked me. And right there, 80% of my viewing audience, 80% of my live viewing audience, gone. Gone. Just like that. Just like that, because Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act protects them. Now, let me get more specific. Because and this is not a technical glitch, I met Mike Lindell last week. That's me and Mike Lindell. On Friday, I'm going to speak with him about my store. And this is what I pray that you guys, I ask that you pray about. Mike Lindell has an initiative called My Store. It's a patriotic version of Amazon. This is where I need you guys to help me. This is where we can do this. What I want to do with Mike Lindell is I want to ask him, as I go around and I do these live locals, because I do believe I'm going to have to go around the country and see you guys. Rush Limbaugh had his Rush to Excellence tours. Jarrin will have his Jarrin Goes Local tours. But this right here, My Store, it's a patriotic version of Amazon. Let's read this. This is the first excerpt. There's the first pull quote. It says, "For years, entrepreneurs and inventors have come to me with products and ideas. They don't know how to market them. I haven't had to show them. I'm going to put vetted products from great entrepreneurs on here. Like you see a sampling of them here today. We're finally going to be able to get these products to you and great entrepreneurs that are great ideas out to you, the public." Right? So that's the first idea. The first idea is that Mike Lindell is going to have a platform that rivals Amazon. I am asking you, as I do the live local stuff, I'm going to look to go around the country and we're going to do this thing. I'm going to pitch Mike Lindell on Friday. Hey, sir, I'm going to go around the country and I'm going to talk to a bunch of dirt-handed, Bible-believing, flag-waving, Christian, patriotic Americans. Many of them are business owners or no businesses. And I'm going to pitch him a process that, you know, if I can help him with this, I want to help him with this. I want to be the link. I want to be the link. Again, this is why for me, it's so important to have listeners support me here, because this is my job. Linking Mike Lindell and these patriots is not my job. But if I can help that, I want to help that. And that's what we got to do. It's going to be painful in the sense that you might not get the Nikes, which you don't want that anyway because you don't want Satan shoes. You might not get the product at the price that you want, but your money is ammunition. And if you want to support patriots, here's a specific way. Let me do the last part here. The last part is, just a span of a few months, Mike Lindell's been banned from Twitter, sued the voting machine company, Dominion. He's going to lose $65 million in revenue. So this is a dude that's losing. Mike Lindell is losing money because he took a stand for Trump. Mike Lindell is losing money because he's a patriot. Mike Lindell is losing money because he's America first. The only way that we help people like him, help people like my friend who owns Sandhills Beef Company in Mullen, Nebraska, again, who is hiring, there's up in the top left, sandhillsbeefco.com. You can get beef there. He'll ship it to you, all sorts of stuff. But he's hiring. You want a job? You got to work. It might be hard. You might have to get dirt on your hands. You might actually have to be an American that bears God's image and produces stuff and makes stuff and pays more because it's going to a patriot versus a godless commie corporation that has monopolistic lobbyist influences on politicians. The last thing I need to tell you is the gospel. You and I broke God's law. Jesus paid the fine. Believe in that and that he rose from the grave, and you will go to heaven. That's the great news. That is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Do not believe that, and you will go to hell. I do believe our time is short, but that's because the Bible teaches an imminence doctrine, that Jesus can come back at any time. I do not want you or anybody, even these godless commies, I do not want anybody to go to hell. God doesn't want people to go to hell. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 4, he wants everyone to come to a knowledge of truth. God doesn't want people to go to hell, which is why he put himself on a cross to die for their sins. Their role, their job, their duty, their responsibility is to believe the gospel. Believe the gospel, you will go to heaven. Do not believe the gospel, you will be in eternal conscious torment for your sins. And I don't want that to happen to you. Tomorrow will not be live because of my son's t-ball game, so it's going to be recording. Please find out more information about me in the links below. Please share with the folks that you can, because getting nuked is not cool. It's not cool. I'll just say that. I appreciate your time. God bless you. I'm Jarrin Jackson. Now go to war.